byayo.
Have you ever wondered the history of art in Uganda? How did we start painting? How did everything come about? We have so much you didn't know about art. So in this series we are starting this Sunday here at Gugude TV, we are going to be exploring in depth about the history of art in Uganda. Don't miss Uganda Nevia every Sunday 7:30 p.m. with me, Namale Agnes.
Uganda, like many other countries, is full of artists, from performing arts to creative arts, visual arts that include paintings, sculptures, and so many others. Artists are everywhere all over the streets of Kampala and other parts of Uganda, although the biggest market for these amazing works comes from tourists from other parts of the world. Next to State House, Nakasero, lies the National Art Gallery, Nommo Gallery, where different artists get to exhibit their art pieces at the end of the day.
I'm Balimonse Philip. I'm the curator of Nommo Gallery, and I work with a very interesting team of about 6 people for this department. Nommo Gallery has quite a rich history, and the selection of the word largely depended on the first curator at the time. It was a random selection of the word. It's not so much connected to the history of the space, but the way it came up, according to Sidney Littlefield Casper, it was more of a learning phase for everyone. So even the selection of the name then was random and not connected to the narrative of the space. Nommo Gallery was started in 1964, and to interest you, it is the second oldest gallery in East Africa. Nommo Gallery is a national gallery, and if you see here, it has the home of the visual artists. So it was initiated as a home for Ugandan visual artists, and but to remind you, it's under the Uganda National Culture Center, so it's a visual arts department, and in 1964 it was enacted in the Act of Parliament, and it was started in that. But it's a home for Uganda visual artists that agitated to the president then, in the 1960s, to have a space where they can explore and experiment creativity. So that's how it started, and that's how it came up.
Getting to know the National Gallery, you may have to go through security checkpoints that a number of people are not comfortable with. But Philip says they're actually lucky to have it.
Except if someone hates secure places, that's when you can hate security. But remember, we are neighbors to the president, and that's a privilege for us to have security. But except if you're a wrongdoer, that's when you hate security. But for the fact that what we keep up in this place is highly valued, security is an added advantage. Even though processes of coming to the place can be revised and interrogated, but for security purposes, it is a privilege.
Now, Nommo Gallery is a collection of quite a number of art pieces, from writings to paintings and sculptures.
Visual arts, it's art that you enjoy using your sight, and that's why it's called visual, from vision. You use your eyes. So every art form that you sort of appreciate using your sight, it's called visual. For example, photography, sculpture, ceramics. The moment you try to unpack a story using your eyes, then that's visual art. Okay, this is a Uganda National Gallery. So it's the only national representation in terms of the gallery, and it's under the Uganda National Culture. So this is the visual art side, and the National Theatre is the performing side of the Uganda National Culture Center. So what happens with the National Gallery, we must have a national collection, and we empower artists, we restore, we preserve and promote culture. So in that angle, all the activities that we do stimulate that sort of conversation with the creative minds visually. Art, to demystify that, art is creativity, and art is creation, art is innovation. And the moment you create something that is original and something that has never existed, that is art. And visual art is just one portion of art. You create for the appreciation of the sight, performing is another. So the moment you create something new, it's art, generally. That's art by definition. But its significance to the world, and Uganda in particular, it's a form of documentation. It's a form of frozen history. It's a form of telling our stories. And generally, to be an artist, you must have a proposition to change your world. So it's because change comes with new things and inventions. So for you to claim to be an artist, you must create something new. But also, you must have a story to tell. That's what we call a narrative. So what we document as artists is a narrative in terms of history, in terms of all that. So these are frozen moments, but kept in the mind of an artist, in the mind of a creator. So how do you see a particular event? How do you see a particular moment? And how do you interpret it? Then that becomes your proposal. And if it's new, you become an artist.
Unlike the Western countries, the spirit of art in Uganda is mostly on a down low.
Because it's Western culture. You said it, and you said in Western countries. Africa is unique, and the idea of galleries and the idea of museums is purely foreign. To give you a little bit of history of how museums in the Western world come up, it comes from the word museo. Museo simply means memory. And what museums and galleries deal with is memory. And the African way of dealing with memories is different from the Western way of dealing with memories. So in Europe and in the West, memories were kept by particular goddesses. And these goddesses of memory, or gods of memories, when they started to die out, they started to create spaces where these memories can be kept. Those are the places that turned out to be museums. In Africa, our memories are in initiation ceremonies, and they are in events and activities. So the longer we keep the activities going, we have living museums. So, but because we had a disruption of colonization, we sort of got a hybrid of Western, native. So the museum idea of a building and a structure is foreign, but we try to domesticate it and to fit within the global demands. I don't believe there is a young artist. The moment you say you're an artist, you're an artist. There is no young, because artists are at the same level. What differs is the level of experience, the richness of their story, the narrative they have to say, the richness of their conversation and proposal, and how they respond to situations that come up in global affairs. So there is no young artist. So the beginning of, to answer that question, if someone claims to be a young artist, then he's not an artist, first. So I can't answer for artists that are there and unexistent. I can say maybe some artists could be emerging in terms of idea, in terms of concept, in terms of testing their philosophies and notions, but they are not young. They are still at a stage of saying, is it worth it? They are still experimenting, but they are not young, and it's only shaping their conversations and stories into mainstreaming them into a more coherent and cohesive story, a more consistent story for them to gain the maturity that you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, how do you get to know the worth of your art piece?
There are many factors that influence the value of art. The first factor is majorly, is it new? Is it a new idea? For us even to start saying it's an art form. Is it new? Has it been done before? That is the basic factor. But again, the experiences you share in this particular new media or new idea also determines. The richness of the story is a factor. Sizes come in but last. The materials come in but not so substantial. The level of experience and the pitch, the level of your career, at which your career is, also matters. But the richness of the story, because these artworks are not just pieces that you look at, they are stories, and how they connect with the audience or the community determines the price also.
History says the early man used to write on stones and had the skill of a blacksmith. But how did this evolve? How did Uganda come to adopt the Western museum culture?
It comes to Uganda. The first art schools in Africa is Makerere Art School, which is Margaret Trowell School of Industrial and Fine Arts, established around the mid-30s, 1930s. Another one is Ibadan University in West Africa, established around 1940s. So between Makerere and Ibadan, those are the first formal art schools in Africa. And in Uganda, it was established by Margaret Trowell. That's why it's called Margaret Trowell School of Industrial and Fine Arts. So Margaret Trowell comes to Uganda and initiates this Western sort of art form. And the way she started it, she never wanted to intoxicate Ugandans with purely the foreign ideas, but she wanted to polish what they were doing at the time. So she had 3 students, which are more like, you can call the former masters of art, Elimon Jau, Simon Tiro, and Gregory Maroba. So those are the first graduates of Makerere University. And that's how formal education in art starts in Uganda, to go into conventional painting and all that.
that has been it for today's episode. Please don't miss, if you want to find out how these beautiful art pieces are made, please don't dare to miss Uganda Nebyayo next Sunday, same time, 7:30 p.m. here at Gugude TV. We have a variety of shows coming up. Please don't miss. It's me, Namale Agnes. Bye-bye.
Eno ye Uganda Nebyayo.